The neocon queen, Nikki Haley, did a series of interviews. I'm going to play one and give my commentary because there are parts of what she said that I thought were interesting, including one of the rare instances where she's actually talked about healthcare.
Thank you for making time for us.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, we don't get to hear from you often, so I've got a lot of territory I want to cover.
Sure.
And just right off the bat, you know, when you concluded your campaign, you had 97 delegates in the primaries. You have endorsed Donald Trump. You spoke at the convention. But are you going to campaign for him?
You know, he knows I'm on standby. I talked to him back in June. He's aware that I'm ready if he ever needs me to do that. You know, I think this election is important. I think that there's a lot at stake. I think we know basically what we're going to get because we've got two administrations asking to be reelected. And, you know, I look at it from the standpoint of a voter. You know, I worry about my kids. I worry about the fact that the cost of living is so high. You know, cost of goods is up 20%. I look at housing. I saw how hard it was for my daughter and her husband to buy a home and how the average home buyer in America is 49 years old. I look at immigration. I worry about safety. I worry about domestically foreign entities coming in and the threats that we could face. I worry about national security globally and what's happening with our allies around the world. And, you know, you look at energy and the fact that, you know, if we don't have a strong energy base, we're going to continue to have issues as well. And so there's just a lot going on. To me, the stark contrast between a Trump and Harris administration are what led me to say, yes, I need to, you know, I'm going to be voting with Trump and I'm going to speak at the convention. And so that's what I did. When I look at the policies and how they affect my family and how I think they're going to affect the country, that's where I go back and I look at the differences. I mean, these are the candidates we have been given. You know, you look at Kamala Harris and it's quite remarkable. She never had a debate. She never had a primary. She never had anyone vote for her. And they basically took her and in 48 hours they put her back out there and she was this whole new candidate. But the reality is she has a record. The administration has a record. Trump has a record. And so neither are perfect. Neither are ideal. But when I look at which one, I don't agree with Trump on everything, but I agree with him on a lot of the policies. I don't know that I agree with Harris on many policies at all. And so I think when women go to vote, they're going to look at how does this affect my family? How does this affect our finances? How does this affect safety and national security? And which do we choose from? And so as a voter, the one I went with is with Trump because I know that I've seen what his policies do. I know our economy was better under Trump. I know our national security was better under Trump. I know that our energy was dominant under Trump. And I know that if we want to look at how we're going to get that back on track, I think he's probably the best candidate we have to do it.
Well, I mean, you know that we're at record oil production, employment. There's some question, but it's still a very good level, high level of employment.
But Margaret,
in this
look at what
country.
happened. I mean, honestly, when I say I worry about my kids for cost of living, my daughter, I hear her talk about her grocery bill. My son, who just graduated college, buying a home's not even an option. Just being able to afford rent is a big deal.
Right.
You can't overlook that. You know, when costs got up, when inflation got up to 9%, yes, it's at 3%, got up to 9%. You look that we're on the verge of what could be a recession. You're going to help them. And they're, you know, what I would suggest to every American, look at the records of each of them. We had an administration of each of them. We had a Harris administration, we had a Trump administration. And then look at what they say to us now and make your decisions off of that. And I think when you look at that, you've got some stark contrast there. You know, Harris was not strong on the border. Trump was strong on the border. Harris wanted to eliminate fracking. Now she's taking that back. But energy production was not as strong as it was under the Trump administration.
It's at a record high right now, actually. But when you listen to some of the things, you said you don't like handouts, and you're concerned about sort of the fiscal conservatism here. Former President Trump pledged to mandate that the government and insurance companies pay for fertilization treatments or IVF treatments for women. Is that a policy you would support, that insurance companies or the federal government pay for that?
It's not a policy I support any more than it's a policy of Kamala Harris to remove private health insurance or Medicare for All. Look, at the end of the day,
But this is the head of the Republican Party. This is the Republican nominee.
I know, but Margaret, you also have to talk about the head of the Democrat Party. Don't just look at one and not look at the other. When you talk about Medicare for All, when you talk about removing private health insurance, you might as well be Canada. You might as well look at socialist health care. We never want to get to that point because you're not going to get IVF or anything else, cancer drugs or anything else when it comes to that. When you look at health care, we need to know, both of my children were products of fertility. We want that option to be available to everyone. But the way you do it is you don't mandate coverage. Instead, you go and you make sure that coverage is accessible and you make sure that you're doing everything you can to make it affordable. That comes with regulations. Kamala has her and Biden put down a lot of regulations on a lot of things. Trump has relieved those regulations. So that we need to have more of an important policy conversation than sound bites.
In the first of those 3 excerpts I play, Haley engages in some revisionist history. She claims, I looked at the 2 candidates and I decided that Trump was the better one. You actually, and I remember this because I covered it when it happened. She, after dropping out of the primary, spent over a month just with no public appearances. And then when she gave her speech as the chair of whatever group she's with now, that was when she was asked, are you going to vote for Trump? And she admitted that she would. And that was 2 months before Biden, who she criticized at the time of this announcement, would end up dropping out of the race and being swapped out with Harris. One of the things I really don't like about a lot of politicians is that they give lip service to a problem or an issue that is legitimate in the United States without actually offering any solution for how it will be addressed. Like, she talks about her children struggling. My daughter just got married, was not able to buy a home, and the average home buyer is 49 years old. It's like, well, okay, but what is your proposal to create younger home buyers? Are you going to offer incentives, or like what that's why I said and one of the reasons I don't take her seriously, and nobody should, is that in endorsing Trump, you are asking us not just to vote for the Republican or the Democrat, which you would do no matter who the nominee was, but you're asking us to take a person who, in your own words, had multiple problems with his tenure, right? The budget, the deficit increasing, weak in the knees on, I think it was Ukraine, just these different criticisms that she had. And we're supposed to believe that these problems, if they're the same problems to us, if we feel the same way that she does about these issues being so awful, that he's going to magically be better on them, that if we give him another 4 years, well, why wasn't he good on them in the first place? And this part is what I thought was, people probably didn't catch it. She mentions that her son just graduated. My son just graduated from college, and buying a home is not even an option. And my daughter's grocery bills. And I'm sitting here and I was thinking to myself, because people, I get it, they don't follow this stuff as much as I do. I've long since made peace with that. But consider something. Haley is talking about the economic plights of her children, her 2 adult children, but still her children, people that we could probably, if we're being just fair and reasonable, assume she cares the most about of anyone in this world. Now, when Haley talks about the struggles of her children, she leaves out the part that their mother is a millionaire 8 times over. She has a net worth of at least $8 million, and I'm supposed to believe that if her kids are not able to afford, are like bothered by high grocery cost or not having a home or being able to buy a home, that she wouldn't help them out. I mean, she could easily take $2 million of that $8 million and buy homes for both of them, and then they would just never have to worry about having a roof over their head ever again. That's why I said, like, most people, when they do the whole, I've seen this affects me personally because in my community I see people sleeping in boxes. They know at the very least to just kind of like speak in general terms of, the struggles that people are going through. They're not going to be stupid enough to bring up their kids' struggling financially when they themselves are millionaires. Like, to me, it makes her look crazy. Am I supposed to believe that Haley is just casually sitting by watching her kids not be able to afford a house or groceries and going, I wonder what I will ever do as I sit on my bag of $8 million and my kids are unable to get food or have a place to live? Whatever will I do to assist them? It's pure lunacy. But the part of this interview that made me want to play it was when she mentions Medicare for All. Now, I watched a lot of clips of Haley during her presidential campaign, unfortunately, and I don't ever remember her bringing up single payer, like, ever. I don't even remember her bringing up Obamacare, or I guess the ACA. It's just, you really, ever since Trump's healthcare plan just got blown up by McCain in 2017, you really don't see, we've been in this like 8-year period where Republicans hardly ever mention healthcare. Like, again, IVF and Roe v. Wade, but like actual stuff having to do with, hey, the cost of prescription drugs and going to a doctor, and just the various other intricacies of having coverage is something that has not been talked about by conservatives really that much at all in the last 8 years. Again, out of like, Trump and Vance and Britt and Noam and Lake and MTG and all these other people, they're none of them ever bring up healthcare, like, just extremely rare. But she brings it up, and of course, the usual smearing occurs. You're going to have healthcare like Canada, or socialized medicine and socialized healthcare, and then no one will be able to get access to IVF. And at first I thought, wait, is there some scandal in Canada I didn't hear about where people are not able to get IVF over there? I look it up. I see no issue. And what drives me crazy, and we've talked about this before. Like, I know that the real reason that politicians are opposed to single payer is that they are bought out by the for-profit healthcare industry. But what I find so sad is that I'm supposed to believe, in a world, not talking about the United States, in a world where these other developed countries have healthcare as a right. You live there, you have access to healthcare. They have single payer. I'm supposed to believe that all these other developed countries can have single payer without becoming these socialist regimes like Cuba and Venezuela. But if the United States dares to say, hey, you know what, maybe we should just let people, I mean, just like with a firefighter, everybody pays taxes for the firefighters, and then you call them up, they perform the service, you don't have to pay. The same philosophy could be used here. But for whatever reason, and we know the reason, they use these gaslighting terms about socialist, and they throw out random factoids that aren't even, in some cases, just like blatant lies. You won't have access to IVF if you have single payer. Why would we not? Like, what are you even talking about? But again, that part really interested me because they never bring up healthcare anymore. They always just, the same three issues that I see Republicans talk about over and over are culture war crap, all the stuff with having problems with people because of their orientation or gender, stupid stuff. Doesn't affect anyone's life. Immigration and general ramblings about the economy. So they'll talk about, the border's so horrible, the border's so bad, la 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 la, and then they'll talk about, look at how expensive everything is, and then they'll just say Trump has America First policy, or he was better on this because no regulate. Like, it's so surreal that you have all of these issues affecting people, right? Healthcare being a big one. I mean, look at how many people just don't have any coverage. And you can go multiple years as a part. It's not just Haley, but like, you can run for president. You can be in all these different offices, all these different interviews, and just never bring up, are you going to try to cover more people with healthcare? Okay, if you're not for getting rid of private insurance, which you should be, if you don't want people to have their prices jacked up for the sake of giving these CEOs more money, are you at least in favor of a public option? They don't have to explain anything. They just give these interviews. They call everybody that disagrees with them some term that means nothing, the Red Scare. If you want health care that you don't have to pay for. Well, you pay taxes just like you do for firefighters and any other basic utility that is sponsored by the government. You are trying to have Cuba in the U.S. Like it's sad. But no, this interview was interesting because of that particular snippet. The fact that Haley is trying to pretend that if her kids can't afford something, her and her $8 million are not going to come and swoop in and save the day for them. And also that she has to keep making excuses for why she bent the knee to Trump. She right now, I'm projecting that she's trying to get a cabinet position. In that interview, she mentions that that I'm on standby if Trump wants to campaign with me. He knows there's literally no reason for him to campaign with her. She lost New Hampshire, a state that was tailor-made for her, where Democrats were voting for her, apparently. She lost her home state. Like there's no reason Trump would want to campaign with her. Not a single. There are more reasons for Trump to campaign with Ted Bundy than Nikki Haley. That's just how irrational the thought of taking the neocon queen herself, who is despised by a good chunk of the electorate of the party for daring to challenge their leader in the first place, and go, oh yeah, I will have Nikki with me. We will campaign around everywhere. No way. So these interviews are just, again, a lot of times it's just this, but sometimes they say something that I think is interesting, and this was interesting because she tries to pretend she's not a millionaire several times over, and that a public option or the ability to just have health care that doesn't cost a crap load of money is part of some evil socialist regime. They just love throwing these terms around. Oh, you want access to health care for more people, and something that has been used in other developed countries as well. Socialist.